Hello. Today we're going to talk a little bit more about value. In particular, we're going to speak about stippling as a method of creating form and depth. So, stippling is the use of dots to create a series of values. Just like when we were doing the cross-hatching, as marks get closer together, it appears dark, and when they get farther apart, it feels a little bit lighter. So if we were to do that same value range that we did with the cross-hatching, we would do really close together dots on one side that would slowly loosen up. And perhaps with a tool like this, or with a tool like your micron pens in your kits, you would want to vary the way in which you were applying your dots. So maybe this would be more of a straight up and down kind of thing over here, and it would kind of drift to a little bit of a side thing over here, and then very sparse as we get farther out. But you can kind of see how we end up getting darks on this end, and it starts to lighten up as we go. Stippling is probably the most time consuming of the different ways to add value. You really kind of have to buy in if you're going to stipple an entire piece. Usually you'll see stippling added into a drawing in a particular area to add maybe a texture, or to do some variation in like the curvature of a figure or something like that, versus seeing the whole piece be done stippled. When people do an entire piece of stippling, sometimes it almost feels like they're just saying, hey, I can do an entire piece that's stippled. Look at this level of finish that I can produce. But for this week, we are particularly concerned with finding ways to make simple shapes like cones and cubes have depth and volume. So let's look at a cone to start with. So I'm going to kind of map in where my cone's going with my dot structure here, because we're going to use that stippling to create the value. And I'm going to kind of leave this area along this edge blank. Now, just like over here, we're thinking about a light source coming from up here and drifting over the side here. So it'll be dark along this edge and light along this edge. So that means that our dots will be closest together over on this edge, and they'll get farther apart, kind of in this curved shape. If you're ever confused as to how light might hit a surface, feel free and don't feel like you're cheating to just set up, if you want to set up a cone, you can literally twist the paper and set it down on the table, put a lamp of any sort on it, and you'll see how the light hits that surface. Illustrators and artists for years and years and years have used models like that to see how the light hits things, to see how the shape really looks. You really want to be focusing on what's in front of you, not on your perception of what that thing is. Okay? So, as you can see, we're building up the dot structure over on the edge, building it up kind of on the bottom. And it's kind of coming together, right? We're getting a little bit of this U that I was talking about. Okay. So there we go. There's our kind of our basic shape sort of roughed in. We'll do a few more dots. And as I said, you can kind of vary those marks a little bit. Maybe it wants to be a little bit lighter as you go out, so maybe you shift it to a little bit of its side. Now, I really want to see where the edge of this piece is, but I don't want it to feel at all dark. So, not on the object itself. So, that's when you can start to think about how your background can play into your drawings. So, when you think about your figure and your ground should make your figure pop out. So, I'm going to make a dark ground along the edge of my figure, which will make this side of the piece pop out. So in order to do that, all in stippling, I'm going to do a lot of dots close together along the edge in the negative space of this cone. And you'll kind of see it start to come out here in just a little bit. I did a listing cone, please forgive me. So there you're starting to see how this cone sort of comes to life. And because we have the light edge and we have that dark edge, we start to start to see where it gets round. If we really want to give it a little bit of dimension, maybe we give it a little bit of a line to indicate where that thing ends up sitting in a space. And make it a little bit darker so it pops off of that line some more. And the thing is, you can add as many dots as you need to into your dark areas. Add more dots into my haloing. You call it haloing when you use the background in this fashion to make your shapes pop off. Alright, so there you see my cone. We got our light source coming from up here. We have this edge, which is very light. We have this edge, which is much darker.